How do you get out of a negative state? It's so easy to get stuck in a negative spiral where you're experiencing cycles of negative thoughts, where you're feeling sad or depressed, and maybe you feel like you've lost all inspiration in life. These states are such a natural part of the human experience. It's something that we all have to go through at times. Now, whilst these states are temporary, we do often have to intentionally take action to get out of these spirals ourselves so that we don't remain stuck in them and perpetuate the pain for longer than is necessary. My name's Georgia. I've just finished studying a master's degree in consciousness, spirituality and transpersonal psychology, and in today's video I want to give you my 4-step process that I use for getting out of low and depressed moods. Now, I am someone who believes that life occurs in cycles, so this can happen on a grand scale, the cycles of civilization, for example, that can span over thousands of years, but I also think this applies to our own individual lives. I think as individuals, we go through cycles in our own life. I've been going through a lot of stuff lately, so I feel like I'm at a stage in my life where I'm at the bottom of one of these cycles, which is fine because the only constant in life is change, so I know it is going to shift. However, whilst I have been in this stage of the cycle, then I've had to remember to pull out this toolkit, because whenever I use this method when I'm feeling down, it has never failed me, and I wanted to share it with all of you guys in case anyone else could use it too. So the first step of my method to get out of a negative state is to honour your emotions. Now, what I mean by this is if we want to shift out of a negative state, we have to move through it first. It's like that children's book. Do you remember that story of some children having to go through some swamp? I can't remember what it was, but there's that story that they can't go under it and they can't go over it, they have to go through it. And it's the same when it comes to our negative emotions too. If we want to get rid of a negative emotion, then the only way to do that is to feel it and to release it. If we don't feel the emotion, then it doesn't just disappear, it becomes suppressed or repressed within us. And the only difference between suppression and repression is that one is conscious and one is unconscious. But what this might look like in your everyday life is having negative or uncomfortable emotions and trying to escape them through various forms. It might be that you want to watch Netflix for hours on end to try and escape some negative feeling that you're experiencing. Maybe you resort to things like alcohol or unhealthy eating habits. Maybe you constantly surround yourself by people to distract yourself from the pain that you're experiencing. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what you're doing, because if you're doing anything except feeling that emotion, then you are suppressing that emotion. All you're doing when you try to escape an emotion is making it persist even more, because what we resist persists. It doesn't matter how much you manage to bury that emotion within you, it's always going to be there, and what's going to happen is it's going to get activated in response to other situations, and it's also going to cloud your perception because that emotion is still lingering within you. The only way to get past that emotion and to truly let go of it is to feel it. When you allow yourself to feel the emotion, you allow yourself to move through that energy and to actually release it. So the solution here, which is step 1 of the process, is when you notice yourself feeling some form of emotional discomfort, don't shy away from that emotional pain. Bring your conscious awareness to it. Imagine your awareness is like a torch and you're literally shining it onto that emotion. So I want you to literally feel where you can feel that emotion in your body. For me, when I'm feeling anxious, for example, I often feel it physically here in my chest. So I want you to notice the emotion and notice exactly where you're feeling it in your body. And basically what you want to do is just keep your conscious awareness on that emotion where you physically feel it. And what you should notice is the more you shine your awareness on it, eventually it starts to dissipate. And this is because when you stop thinking about what's causing that emotion and you simply just put your pure awareness on it, you're not feeding the emotion anymore. You're just feeling it and allowing it to dissipate. So this simple practice will allow you to truly feel and release your emotions instead of suppressing them. And even just doing this on its own can make you feel so much better. I find that when I practice focusing on my emotions and just bringing my pure awareness to them, I automatically end up feeling so much better than I did before. And often this alone can help shift you out of that negative state. However, I do have 3 more tips that I often use, which in combination with this first practice practice really always get me out of my negative states. So let's move on to the second tip. So the second part of this method is journaling. Now, journaling is an incredible tool if you're feeling really down about something and something's just really playing on your mind. So the purpose of journaling, at least how I use it, is to take whatever is playing on a loop in your mind and to get it out. In this case, we're physically getting it out and writing it on paper. So basically, we're writing about our emotions. Now, I just want to make a note here that there is an important distinction to bear in mind. The idea here with the journaling is to let out our emotions, not to fuel them. I talk a lot about manifestation on this channel, and the whole idea of manifestation is that we attract what we focus on and what we give our energy to. So when it comes to journaling, the point here isn't to give more energy and more emotion to whatever it is that's bothering us in the first place. The idea is that we're simply trying to let out those emotions. It's supposed to feel like a weight has lifted off your chest. And this is how to tell whether the journaling you're doing is effective or not. Is it allowing you to release those emotions? Do you feel lighter after doing the journaling? Do you feel like you're starting to shift out of that negative state? Or, on the other hand, do you feel like you are just writing about the things that annoyed you or upset you in the first place and that you're actually adding fuel to those emotions? Do you feel more riled up after the journaling? Because if that's the case, that is not what we're trying to achieve with journaling. We are not trying to add energy to whatever it was that upset you in the first place. So basically, what I'm trying to say is don't write a novel about whatever it is that's upset you. Instead, use journaling as a way to release your emotions, because when you do journaling properly, it's an incredible way to properly process your emotions. Now, the third step of the process is meditation. Now, the purpose of this is to recenter ourselves and to get us back to a state of a clear mind, or at least as clear as we can. Now, it's very intentional that meditation is the third step in the process. I personally find that it is so much more effective after I've done the feeling of my emotion and the journaling. If I don't do those steps first and go straight into a meditation, especially if something's happened in my life that's really upsetting me, then I find that all that's going to happen in my meditation is that I'm going to really struggle to focus and my mind's just going to be going in spirals of everything that's upsetting me. Whereas if I do those two things first and I give myself the time to process my emotions and let them out, then I find that I can meditate much more effectively. So when I've done those two steps and I feel ready to meditate, the way I like to do it is very simple. I like to just get some meditation music up. I usually just use some on YouTube and simply pick something to focus on. Now, you can use your breath to focus on. What I do is a combination of my breath and counting. This is something that one of my tutors actually taught me. He was a shamanic tutor, but he used to do a form of Zazen meditation, and that's what he taught me. Basically, it was that you count alongside your breathing. So you breathe in, count 1, out 2, in 3, and you go until you reach 10. And the thing with this is it helps you notice when your mind starts wandering, because you might notice yourself suddenly starting to count to 11 or 12, and then you know that your mind has wandered because you should have started again after 10. So that's the meditation I like to do, but really you could focus on anything. The purpose for me here is to just focus on something so that I'm keeping my mind on the present moment instead of letting it veer off and go back down these cycles of whatever were upsetting me in the first place. If we can keep ourselves within the present moment, then we're not feeding whatever was upsetting us in the first place. So meditation is an excellent tool to recenter ourselves and help us shift towards a more positive state. Now, the final step of this method is to reactivate your imagination. Do something that makes you feel inspired. Often when we're stuck in a negative state, it's very easy to forget what we love to do. We really don't feel like doing anything, even things that used to bring us joy and make us feel inspired. And often that inspiration isn't just naturally going to come to you if you've been stuck in this state. It's something that we have to intentionally make happen. We have to intentionally choose to do something again that we know will make us feel inspired, even though we may not feel like doing it in the first place. Now, for me, this is often reading about quantum physics, which I know might not be everyone's favourite pastime, but I find often when I'm stuck in a negative state, I really don't feel like doing reading or anything, but as soon as I just take that step and I guess kind of force myself to do it, I fall right back into the flow of it, and suddenly I find that my inspiration has been reignited. So sometimes you just kind of need to give yourself that little push so that you can reignite your inspiration again. And honestly, this could be anything. It can be really simple things. Maybe you're someone who's really passionate about cooking, so you choose to make yourself a really nice meal. or maybe you're someone who loves being in nature, so you intentionally go out and do some activity that involves being outdoors. Just pick something that usually makes you feel good, that makes you feel inspired, and do it, even if you don't necessarily feel like doing it in the moment. Giving yourself that little push can really allow you to feel like yourself again, and can be such an effective way to shift back into a positive state. Because really, when it comes to this method, the first 2 steps are all about shifting us out of the negative state into a more neutral state. Meditation again helps us get into that neutral state and maybe even starts shifting us into a positive state. And then this last step of reactivating your inspiration, that's what really pushes you into a more positive state. So if you do all of these 4 steps in combination, it can really help you do a dramatic shift from feeling really low, really down, really depressed to being in a much more positive state. So this method never fails me. Whenever I'm down and I remember to use it, it never fails to get me out of that state of feeling stuck. So if you're someone who currently feels like you are stuck in a negative state, then I would definitely encourage you to give this a go. I'm sure it will be really helpful to you too, and I wish you all the best in implementing it. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.